How's everyone doing? Having a good tech conference? Everyone too low on coffee? That's no good. Could I get just a show of hands? I asked this in my other sessions as well. Who is really excited about what you've seen in AX7 so far, like on the keynote? That's good. Some shaky hands. That's really good. Good. Yeah. Well, this session will be just as exciting. Now Per will take it away.
Okay. So it's time to get started. Just need the last people to get in. Yeah, hello. Welcome to the session about labels in the new warehouse management module that was released as part of the R3 release. My name is Per Lykke Lynderup, and with me I have Zach Greenfoss, and we are both working from the development center in Copenhagen. As you can hear, I'm Danish. And as you can hear in a moment, Zach is not. So I hope that you all can understand what I'm saying. The agenda for the session is that we would like to, first of all, explain how it is possible to enable label printing. And there's some things that is obvious that needs to be done, and other things that I hope we will show you what needs to be done to have that capability. So the session will be that we need to make sure we have connection to our printing devices, how to do that, and how to be able to look it up in the actual AX application. Then we'll briefly touch upon the how the language, the ASCII characters will flow from AX to the printing devices. So touch and explain the Zebra programming language. And then we'll make demos for an inbound flow for a purchase order label printing scenario, and as well make demo for an outbound process. Sales order printing during the execution, the processing of the work with the mobile device. And then explain in case you want some carrier integration for that process. So that's kind of the functional explanation, which I will take care of. As a program manager, that's what I know about. So after that, Zach, who is an engineer, will go into details about everything that I will show, how on earth is that possible, and explain all the details about the tables, classes, the kind of explanation about in case you want to do some customizations and extensions to label printing, how is that done? So we hope that after this session, you'll all go back, try this out, and see this is actually great. So with that, yeah, well, let's start the story of the Contoso TechConf, the label printing story, the scenario for this session. So the real business needs for this company is that we would like to print out zero shipping container code IDs when we do a purchase order receiving process within our main distribution center of our company. So the warehouse workers takes against orders with a mobile device, items arriving from different vendors. We would like to print out labels and associate these labels on license plates before we put away the inventory. So that's the inbound story. When it comes to the outbound, we will make a sales order process. And for that one, we as well would like to print labels, but this time it's defined based on the carrier that we want to use for the shipment. And I hope that story can be used in whatever business requirements that you have in the real world. So how to enable label printing? Well, the first settings needed is actually 2 very small parameters as part of the AX configuration. To be able to connect to the printer drivers, the devices, on server and client side, there's 2 checkbox which says connect to printers on the server when it comes to the configuration for the server on the IoT, and for the client side, allow clients to connect to printers on this server. So these 2 checkboxes. As soon as this is enabled and you start the application, you can now look up the Windows device drivers that has been installed within AX. That's kind of the small lookup you see here. That will be possible. And we can make the connection to these devices. Now, what kind of communication is it then that we are able to do in AX? Basically, it's just ASCII characters. It's characters that will be sent to the driver that you select. And as you can see on this slide, this example is using the Zebra programming language, which is what we'll use for this demo, because typically the most printer drivers will be capable of understanding this language. So we'll also use that for the demo. And we'll explain every single meaning, of these characters during the session, so you are familiar with the language. No, sorry, will not. Just be aware that it's just text being sent out, right? And the device driver, the printer driver, will of course be able to take all of these strange characters and make a label out of this. So, what is needed in case we would like to make the inbound scenario? First, we need a device. We need a printer of some kind. And we need to install the driver for it. When that's done, we may want to use some kind of label design software. And, well, typically you get that as part of the purchase of the device. In our case, we did not afford to buy a device. So we just installed the driver, and we used just a simulator to show what will be printed. So with the label design application, you can design in whatever more or less advanced layout of your labels. And then you can export this Zebra programming language and paste this into AX. So that's one way to get the design done and then get the output and paste that into AX. And we'll show how that is done. So first, we install the driver. In our case, we have selected one of the many Zebra printers. Of course, it could be any kind of device that understand, in this case, this kind of language. And what we've done is that under the printer properties, we've added a port for this device. Rather than printing directly to this device, we print to a text file when using this driver. So whatever output is been sent to this Windows driver will be sent to a text file. Now this is just standard how you can do that. So they would look like something like this. What you see here is actually we found this Zebra emulator, and cross our fingers that this site is still online when doing a live demo. But this is really what will be sent as characters to the printing device driver, and that one will then be able to print out what you see on the right side. So as you can see, there are characters, at least I can see here, is not code specific for kind of understanding what happens. So we could see here, if I key in Contoso, TechConf, our new shipping company, and I go down here and say redraw on this emulator site we found, well, it changed the title up here, affecting what I just typed on it. So that's kind of the idea. Within AX as well, we got all these weird ASCII characters pasted in, but some specific places within that, we actually have some fields we would like to change. We'd like to make these variables to be, we like to change those values depending on the process we are printing from. That's the whole idea about this. So we install some kind of label design software. In this case, you can install this for free. It's Zebra again. Use any kind of device software for that. And you basically, this is just a drag and drop concept, and you can make fixed text, variables, print barcoding, etc. And when we then print this one to our device, it will generate this text file with these weird characters in it. And what we do with this text is that we go into AX, we open the warehouse management module, we go down under the setup and document routing layouts. And then we paste these characters into this text box. And as you may see, I actually already did. So this was actually the label I just showed you before with the barcode. This is in GS1 ship container code ID, 18 digits. And the blue part I marked here is the field that we would like to change the value for. And it's already done. I'll just mark this one here, and then I right-click here. And you can see there's a whole list of field values that you can put in that would be the value being changed during the printing operation. And Zach will come into details about where is this actually populated and how can you use this list of fields as part of your label printing. So just be aware, there's a long list of fields that may or may not make sense depending on the process you're in. I mean, if you're receiving, for instance, a purchase order, you'll probably not have the customer account number populated. So, but at least then the vendor is part of that process. And you can use that as part of your label printing. So now what we have achieved is that we have generated this simple label containing of one barcode of a certain format. And for those of you that are familiar with the GS1 standard, these two zeros in front means that this is actually something called a Zero Shipping Container Code, ID, which represents some very special pre-formatted constraints about how this label needs to look like. So that we also need to enable somewhere. And we pasted this for these characters into AX as part of the document layout, the label layout. So now we have actually a label which is ready to be printed, and we will replace the number with a license plate ID during that process. So now we have the label, but when are we going to print it? And which, I mean, you typically have several label designs defined. So where in the process do we decide which of these label layouts we want to use? And you do that under something called document routing. So in this form, it's first format defined per order type. So in this case, we look into the purchase order, and you define that, in this case, for a specific warehouse. And at the bottom, I say, when something hit this one, I want to use this printer device with this layout we just have created. And as you can see on the top, this one is query defined. So you can have several layouts, define those, and for instance, make some vendor-specific labels, as an example. So let's go and look how it looks in the real implementation. So again, under setup, just above the one we opened before, we got the document routing settings. And you can have several ones used if you want to. As you can see, this one is capable of finding, based on the connection property we did, the drivers for the printers. And then you select the layout in the second column. We're almost there. It wasn't that much setup. But we also need to inform the system about when to call this document routing layout to find our label and do the print. And for this inbound example, for receiving purchase order, this is enabled as part of the mobile device menu items. And those of you that have been part of the many sessions, especially the one Zach did around our IF mobile device, would know that there's a lot of parameters on these mobile device menu items. And one of them being print label for some of the creation types we have out of the box. So with this small checkbox saying they would like to print out label, it will call down, find this layout, and then print our label. The thing I've done down here is as well, for this demo, I will also generate my license plate. Yes?
Is it, so I think we have problems trying to get it to generate the batch number on a label when you're using like the auto batch number groups. Is that supported now?
Yeah, so the question was about the auto-generation of batch numbers. For CO8, we did make some additional functionality for being capable of processing the auto-generation of batch numbers during the receiving. So we might hook up after this one to ensure that we have nailed down exactly your business scenario. Okay? But there are in CO8 additional capabilities for auto-generation of batch numbers.
Okay, and you see that printing on labels as well?
Not for this one. This one will not, I mean, you can pull out the batch number if it's part of, and we'll come into details about the list of fields that are populated as part of the printing process. Okay? Just a small note on this one. That's for the license plate receiving process. I mean, this is what you use if you have an ASN advanced shipping notification. And you will say, yeah, well, the items will then probably already have a label, and I actually do a license plate receiving process. But in case not, that you use it for something else, in CO8, you can now enable the license plate printing, which will actually also be able to print out all the nested license plates, all the cases, the inner packages, handling units as part of this process. Just a small note, what was introduced as part of CO8 as well. I don't think I need to open this one and show you. It looks exactly like this, I hope, otherwise my demo will not work. And you all probably are familiar with where you find the mobile device menu item. But I did check the small parameter that I want to also generate the license plate ID. And the format in this Contoso TechConf story was that we want to generate a SSCC code. So for that, we need a company prefix ID, and that needs to be defined. And you do that as part of the warehouse management parameters. So in this case, this is our company prefix. We also need to make sure that our number sequence is defined so we don't generate too many characters for this specific format. In this case, if you take this one out and this one in, and you end up, you need 9 characters for this format. And the last thing is that there's a small additional, I think it's number 4 or 3 or 4 in the sequence of numbers that needs to be defined, which indicates what kind of packing type this license plate is. And you can actually define that number as part of the unit sequence group. So for a pallet, the number will become 0 when we generate the code for this label. If you're interested in this specific format, I encourage you to go and have a look at the GS1. I mean, everything there's a huge document about how this format is supposed to look like. Yeah, check ticket was the question. So check ticket will be also generated with this setup. When it comes to the barcode itself, it really depends on, first of all, like 2 kind of things that needs to be considered about check tickets, right? For the outbound process, you need to consider the label software use, whether that is enabled for generating the check ticket itself during the printing. If so, disable that, because AX will actually generate it for you. The second thing that needs to consider is when barcode scanning. If you use a device of a certain type, right? You can also enable the devices based on the reading of the barcodes, whether they are supposed to make the check ticket verification or not, and whether they are supposed to pass on the check ticket, etc. So you need to consider how your device is enabled for reading the barcodes as well. So, but it all depends on, what kind of devices you're using, right? If it's directly just, I know the demo is always like keyboard interference, right? Which is not be the case for a warehouse device. You of course not experience that kind of issues, but so. So when we have enabled this one in the application, wow, that's it. Now we're actually ready to process this. So we'll go now and receive a purchase order, and we'll see that during that we'll hit the menu item, figure out what we need to print. We'll go and look through our setup that we did for the document routing, figure out that we have a label there, design, and then they will send all of these ASCII characters out to the device. And just before that, it will make sure to take this license plate ID field and then assign a new number, which we also generate. Isn't that exciting? Well, no. Guess not. So let's see. We already have a purchase order for an item A001. So I'll just take this number, go to my mobile device, and use the purchase receive menu item. And I'll barcode scan. You saw it. I'll barcode scan the barcode for the item. And I'll receive, in this case, one pallet of this item. So I received a pallet. And obviously, this one did not have any information up front about, from a license plate receiving perspective, based on the package structure. So I have really nothing to scan. I need to print it out, which I hope you remember that when I printed, I was not printing to any device. I was printing to a file. And here we go. This is our label, right? I'll Control A, Control C, copy it, and I'll go to this emulator, Control A, Control V, and then I'll hit the redraw button. And here you see the label that it will look like on the device being printed. And this one, by the way, you see, I see that now. I obviously did not enable it to print a check ticket. So the barcode itself may or may not contain the check ticket, but at least the text is not. So we need to, of course, verify whether your process is to include the check ticket or not as part of this. Whenever we print a label, you can find the label under the warehouse management, inquiries, license plate labels. And see, this is the list of the labels that has been generated on this machine, at least. And as you can see, there are many fields that may or may not be filled out depending on the process you're in. Right? Remember, this was a purchase order receiving process, and therefore it only was capable of putting in the fields related to that process. Right? But you see the number here. This is actually the license plate number that was generated based on the setup we did. Okay? Makes sense? Questions so far? No? That's good. Yeah? So, question was about the nested license plates, right? For the nested license plates, out of the box will only be kind of supported for the license plate receiving process. So it's like you have this packing structure defined. Those of you that are not familiar with that, it's basically the SN. You can, of course, create those informations manually with the parent and the nested, so the outer and inner handling units. That will not contain all of these informations currently. So, question again about the license plate receiving menu item. With the print checkbox, it will print the parent license plate and all the nested license plate IDs, but it will not contain information about all the items that may or may not be part of these cases, inner packages. So, in case you have a parent license plate containing 2 nested license plates, and nested license plate 1 contains 2 items, you will not get, in this label printing entity, information that you have these 2 items in it. That's not supported. So if that's needed, you need to add that. Yeah. So that basically ends the inbound process. We did enable our system to look up our devices, added a label design in AX, made the route for it, and added the menu item to print, and we got the printing out. So what about the outbound? Well, when all comes to all, it's really the same, at least seen from the enablement of the layout of it and the routing when it comes to that. But for this story in this session, well, we would like to print this carrier-specific label. And let's have a look how that can be done. We already got the driver installed, and so that's fine. And the layout as such, well, is the same. I just changed the format a little bit. I need to include some addresses, but I also would like a barcode. So I don't want to go and show that because it's all something you do in whatever label design software that you want, and then just paste that code into AX. What's a lot more interesting is how do we then enable that in case this was a carrier-specific label we want to print? And how do we tell the system that that's what must happen? And for this demo, well, I've created a new shipping carrier. UPS WorldShip is called. And I assign a service for this carrier. And now with this service, I also get a mode of delivery which I can use on my customer entity. So basically, this is a simple thing. This customer always uses this carrier. So I can default my carrier based on my mode of delivery. Right? This could also be done from a transporter, which I just happen to know someone then. We simply just say, whenever goods are shipped to this customer, we use this mode of delivery, and thereby we know this is the carrier. And that will be default on the sales order. So that was the first step. It was just to me not needing to key in that on the sales order. When that is done, well, I need to create I need to tell the system that whenever I use this kind of process, I need to print another label than we just designed. So let's go and take a look at that. It's again in the document routing. I'll close the license plate printing. I hope. Seems like a lost connection. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, let me talk to the, it's good I didn't have it on PowerPoint, right? We're on again? Very good. Yes, connection's back. Good. So, warehouse management, again, document routing, but this time it's not purchase order we want to process. We want to look into the sales order. So I created a new routing entity, and as you can see, I have specified a specific carrier. So whenever this carrier is used, this will be hit, and then we will use the layout, which I did not show you because, well, it looks like this. That explains everything, right? Yeah, well, it explains at least something now. I hope you can see that I have a lot of fields with the addresses, from and to name, etc. At least you can, I hope, imagine these fields will be replaced when I print this label. Okay? So, we need one more thing. For the outbound process, I do not use the mobile device menu items to decide when to kick off this printing. I use the work template. So if we go and look, work templates for sales order processing. I have defined one pick ship, and in the middle of this one, there's a print. Okay, so this print is the one that triggers to go search in the routing and hopefully find something, then look at which label layout and device needs to be printed to, and then process that and send this, do the mapping of fields and send it out to the device. So, that was what we needed. We have actually now enabled to do outbound printing for this carrier-specific label. Yes?
I think I missed out one thing. Usually the amount of labels should be specified when there are more than one package appearances. At what point can we enter the amount of labels?
Okay. So question was the number of labels. I assume when you say that you mean packets 1 out of 3. Yes? SAC will come into that. No, I'm not joking. It will be a customization. I'm sorry about that. We don't, I mean, somewhere in the system you will need to capture that this is packets 1 out of X, right? We don't have that. So, but I'm sure after the technical preview of this one, even you can go and code it. Yes?
And what about the number of labels for one pallet? So for pallets, 4 labels need to be printed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not familiar whether we can trigger set that up. So the question was about if you want to print 2 in that case. I don't. Yeah, manually of course you can do it, but that's. You can't define that as a setting in the language? Okay, Right. I mean, put in 2 of them and then it will print it out twice, yeah. But I guess the easiest will probably be to use the Zebra programming language and say, do this twice, and it will, that's a good answer, right? Sorry? So the feedback was you cannot control it from AX. Well, you can at least make the routing say, in case you want 2, use this routing. In case not, use another routing, right? So, but okay, but that's thanks for that. So we're ready to process this. I'll quickly go back just to show that what we have is a sales order. Containing, again, 1 line to make this simple, pieces of 100. I'll go and release this sales order. Which will, and I hope you enjoyed some of the sessions about what process will then kick in. Karina did just before this one. I will not go into those details. What I can tell is that everything has been set up to be generated. So hopefully when I log in on my device and go to my outbound sales peaking, it will go and say, fine, you need to pick this item from this location. And yeah, I'm sorry, but I really don't remember all of these numbers. So I'll barcode scan this now. You saw it, right? And even heard it. So, and then let's pause here and have a look at the work. Because what happened? Well, we obviously hit the work template, created the work, etc. during the wave processing, and I processed the pick from this location. I identified, I picked this pallet, and then this was the last pick. There was only one. We hit the next line work item, which was the print. Okay, so now it's going out on the printer, and I can take that and put it on my license or my pallet, right? The license plate. So let's go. This is our printer, the text file. I will Control A, Control C, copy this, and go to our printer. Control A, Control V, and then redraw. And what you can see here is this was the shipping label with all these weird characters. The thing we could see was that I've added some address information from and to. As you can see, I spent a lot of time on doing that design for this demo, right? This is, no. Go use one of these many software design packages to make really beautiful labels, right? UPS specific formats. When you purchase this one, you get them out of the box for free. I mean, the layout, at least, right? And you copy paste that and replace the fields as part of within AX. So this was the label we generated, got printed, which was carrier specific driven in case another carrier didn't like this beautiful layout. So I needed to spend some more time on that. So that kind of ended the outbound process. I do, though, just want to mention, Zach already mentioned it, that we do as well have a reprint capability, as part of the mobile device menu item. When you look into this one, it kind of defaults the last printed license plate. But of course, you can just, I mean, I was almost saying that you can just barcode scan the license plate and then it will be reprinted, but you probably not have the license plate ID. So you either look it up, key it in, and then press the OK button to get it printed. And that will look up and find this license plate ID that was keyed in this field, and then use all of the fields that was populated to get process lookup on the routing, decide, okay, this needs to go to this printer with this layout, and then just kick off this printing once more. Okay? This was the label we just printed before during the picking. So, do we have time? Yes, we do, right? Mobile device menu item. And if you attended the session with Zach, you would know that reprint is not creating work or processing work. So thereby it's defined as an indirect mode type in this list, reprint label. Okay? Yep.
If you have more than one print for the same license plate, which one will it take?
Good question. I guess the first.
From which end?
I haven't tried it. We'll write that down and find out. I hope it's from the bottom. Because if you have reuse, then fine. So that would make sense.
Yeah, but the case is that in your document routing, if you set up more than one label to be printed at the same time with different layouts for the same panel, and you have to choose between multiple, which one of them was damaged? So you have to reprint them. Which one? So that's why.
Yeah.
One short question. How would you manage when you have separate warehouse workers and separate printers for one label? Let's say you are in the outbound and the warehouse is very big. You have every 10 meters you have a different printer. You have different workers doing the same, but working on different packing stations or staging areas. So is there a solution?
So the question was about how to decide which printer goes depending on worker or the zone they're in, or I mean, so if it's a question about the worker, you would use the query and look up in case worker equals this, then use this printer device which prints to this printer.
One worker is using the same menu item another 10 workers. And always the same label needs to be printed. So is there a way to say that when this worker is using, or do I have to have a mobile menu device, menu item for every worker, a different one? So
I feel like what you're describing could be solved with the routing that we showed.
So in case you check that you want to run kind of more advanced query functionality on top of the document routing, any field that is populated as part of this printing, you can use to look up and then figure out whether you pass this to device A or device B. I guess that's the best answer I can give you. Okay? Yes. 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 Okay. I think we will say this was the end for the functional, and then run through the more technical implementations, and then take remaining questions at the end. And we are also here after the session.
Great. Thank you very much, Per. So, again, I'm Zach. I'm an engineer based out of Copenhagen. And I'm going to walk you through some of the technical details of what Per just described to us. And specifically with this idea of you need to extend what we've shown you. You need to add things in that are not supported right now. Where would you go in AX to make that happen? That's what I want you in the next 30 minutes to get out of this. So there are really sort of three big pieces, three big components to this label printing API that you need to understand or be comfortable with. There's the license plate label table itself, which is what Per showed, and we'll take a look at in AX, but it is a table with all of these fields that are the substitution fields that we use. There are then two classes that use that. License plate label build class, which is what ultimately pushes data into that table and does sort of the core workflow there. And then the document routing, which is really what, when we kept looking at that document routing layout, it's the one that's sort of having that logic to figure out, which document should I apply. It's the one that actually drives the substitution process and sends it to the printer driver itself. Okay, so these three classes and two classes in one table are really what, if you guys wanted to build some sort of customized solution, this is where I'd start if I was you. Okay? So if we looked at that license plate label table, these are the columns. These are the fields in that table, okay? Which means that this is sort of the full universe of possibilities for substitution fields out of the box in CU8. Now, like Per had mentioned, depending on the different workflow that you sort of get into when you are actually doing printing, some of these might not be populated. Some of these might not make sense to be populated. And some of them, you might need things that are in addition to these fields. So we'll talk about how you could extend this table, add new fields, and where that would apply that logic. So incidentally, if you were to, like Per showed, if we were to right-click on that layout and that big list of fields that gets shown, that is a one-to-one match between the columns in this table and what you get shown in that menu there, that right-click menu. Okay, so the document routing, WHS document routing class, so it has three key methods in it. Right, so the init menu fields is the one that is going to populate that list, that substitution list. The print document, sort of the one that, based on the name, I think you know what it does, but it sort of pulls all this stuff together. It finds the route, figures out how to do the actual translation, and then sends it to the printer. And then that translate method is what actually does the substitution. Right? So based on what's been in the document routing layout, what's on the work line, or wherever the data is coming from, get those together, and then finally, sending it to the printer sends the final ZPL or ASCII characters that have combined with your data to the printer driver. Okay. So like I said, if you right-click in here, you get this list of substitution fields. That's coming from this table that we've been talking about. Yep? So the question is, does it account for the customer language at all? We're gonna look at the code, and we can take a look and see. I don't know off the top of my head. I think the answer, I can't even give you what I think. So we'll take a look and see. Excuse me. So this init menu fields, this is the sum total of this code. It's not a complicated method itself. I've tried to highlight what I consider to be sort of the interesting pieces. No, I guess it's too washed down. Sorry. So all that it's doing, that I'm trying to show here, is that it's looping over this license plate label table, over the fields in here, and it's going through there, and every field, unless it's like a system field or it's not visible, it's adding it to this list. Right? So the key takeaway here that I'm trying to show is that by adding a field to this table, like if you needed to add your own custom field that you need to get on your printing labels, this will already pick that field up and allow it to be used in AX. Right? So just adding it to that table, this thing will get run, and it will be available to you. Okay? Likewise, the translate method is also very simple. I mean, it's ultimately just taking substitution fields, taking data, and sort of pushing those together. Again, you can't really see my highlighting very well, but this is the line here, this replace line in X++. It's taking the format that we use, right, just this sort of simple substitution field format, and then taking the data, sort of stuffing it in there, and then just looping, continuing that loop, looking for other replacement fields. Okay? So what I want to show is, say that we have a requirement that our labels show if something is fragile or not. Right? And so in the ZPL, we have coded it in such a way that if there's a certain flag set, that we're going to print like a broken glass or whatever that icon is that indicates it's a fragile item. But we don't. If you look through those columns, we don't have fragile code as a substitution field to send to a label. So let's walk through the steps that be required to add that to the system. Does that sound good? So we are in AX, and we will quickly go into Morphex. I've created a project here with those three pieces of this label API. We have the license plate label table, and then those two classes themselves. And you can see, like we talked about, so the license plate label has all these different fields, the same fields we've been talking about. And what I've done, and it was better to do this beforehand than on the fly, the way I type. You can see that I've added this fragile code column here, right? And so this could be your code that you've added in. It doesn't matter that it's, it could be on a layer above this. We could add this fragile code in. I've given it a name and a label. I mean, I've just typed this in. You would probably use labels, but so I put that in there. And then if we went to document routing layouts, and we were needing to change this layout, adding this into the ZPL, we could now see that we have fragile code, which is not part of CU8. Like, this is not shipped out of the box. This only exists because I added that to that table, and that init menu items picked that up when it ran and put it here. And if I selected it, then it would add the replacement field here into that label, the label format. Okay, is that clear? Easy? Okay, so I think the next question that I would ask is, okay, that's all fine, it's in the label, but how do we put data into that new field? Right? I mean, that's the next step. So to understand that, we're going to have to talk a little bit about the framework responsible for getting data into that license plate label table. So this is sort of the workflow. This is the workflow responsible for populating that table. Ultimately, it comes somewhere at the top level. There's a work execute display class, and depending on the workflow that you're currently in the middle of when you do this printing, it depends on what class you're actually going to be executing in, what context you'll be executing in. But regardless of that, it will do these next steps. It will create a new license plate label build, which is that class that we talked about. It'll create a new one of those classes. And then you will call build license plate labels on that class. You'll call that method on that class. And then we will have a decision to make, which we'll need to talk about. We'll get back to that. So in sort of one aspect, you're in work execute display get step. You can see the two steps that I talked about here. You have creating the new license plate label build, passing in a work line, work ID, and then calling that build license plate label. Okay? And so how would you, when would this get kicked off? So you remember Per showed in his very excellent demo, he showed having the work lines and the work template it was defining a print step. Right? And so when we're actually like going through and calculating the different work lines, that is where you have this case statement, figuring out what work type you're doing. In a work print type, you would end up in this code. Conversely, in the other way that Per showed, you would be inside one of these work execute display derived classes. Right? So work execute display PO line receiving, or work execute display TO item receiving. Then you are executing code that checks to see if that print label button is checked. Right? So if you remember, Per showed we have this print label option. Right? So two different sort of ways of getting this build class created, and ultimately, it matters because different data is ending up into the final substitution fields. Okay, so as we talked about creating this, and you notice we sort of talked about two different ways of creating it. That really matters because inside of this build license plate labels, we're either going to call insert single label print line or insert single label menu item. And it depends on how you got created, or like where you are in that workflow. I think from the names, it's fairly obvious. If you came from that print line, from the work template, so you have a print line, then this is going to be executed, insert single label print line. And if you were defined as a menu item with that print checkbox, you're going to call insert single label menu item. The important piece to know is that different fields in that table are populated differently depending on which one of these two methods are executed. So like this is the core logic in insert single label menu item. And so you can see we populate like the quantity based on the work line, the quantity of the work. You can see we get the unit ID. We do a big conversion to get the inventory quantity. And so it's going through, figuring out the data, and pushing it into that label table. Okay? If you are on a print line, this is the code. And it's slightly different. I've highlighted it. It's kind of hard to see. But you can see in this case, we actually populate the order number. I've tried to highlight the ones that are different. Order number, the line number, the item ID. We set the to and the from address, the customer purchase order. So these things are slightly different. What I really want to make sure that you understand is if you are going to be building your own solutions, like we're going to be building this fragile code solution, you need to know where in the workflow that this is going to get kicked off, so you know where to put your custom code. Like, if you're going to put some code down here that populates that fragile code, you need to know, are you guys going to define it as a work line in your work templates, or are you going to define it as a custom menu item option? Right? Which way are you going to go with that? Okay. So I've tried to sort of talk about like you have sort of those two big choices to make. Obviously, the work template itself is very flexible. You can sort of put it where you need to in that process. It also ends up, like Per showed, with these work lines. You actually see it as a print work line when you're done, after it creates that work. If it's a menu item, then it can be maybe more deeply integrated into that workflow, right? Because it's not necessarily happening at the end of your picks, right? Or at the end of wherever the work lines that you've defined. It could be happening in the middle of something, or like in the middle of the receiving process. That label could be printing exactly where you needed it to be printing. So those are the sort of the trade-offs that you need to think about. Okay, so we have that fragile code that we've added to that table. So now let's go look how we would then populate that. Just so, for the sake of this demo, I've defined, I'll show you real quick, but I've defined fragile as a custom filter code. So if we look at this product that we have, we scroll down to this filter code, you can see that I've defined this one as fragile. Right? obviously there's different ways to do this. This is what I chose to do for this demo. And then if we come back over to Morphex, and we look at this license plate label build class, you can see that we have those two, insert single label menu item and insert single label print line. If we look at the print line class, you can see here, this is the code that I showed earlier on this slide. This is what's populating those, license plate label, that license plate label row. And you can see what I've added down here. This is sort of my custom code here. It's very exciting. So I'm just checking to see if this item that we are dealing with has that filter code fragile. And if it is, I'm setting, remember this is a new column that we've added into this table. It's a partner customization, customer customization. I've added this in and I'm setting it, and I'm supposing that my ZPL code would then use this true or false statements. Maybe I'd set it to a 1 or a 2, depending, and it would be able to then make a decision at the ZPL level that it needs to print that label or not print that, or print that icon or not print that icon, that it's fragile. Does that make sense? Nodding? Good, good. And so, to answer the question we had earlier around sort of localization or what gets printed, I think the answer is that this is where you would need to look to see, like if things needed to get changed, if you needed to print different things, this is the code that you would take a look at, because this is what populates that license plate label table, which then gets used when we do that final substitution. Okay? Great. So I think at this point, we'd love to answer any additional questions that you might have. There's various links here to blog posts and other information that we have that sort of support what we've talked about here. But if there's anything that Per or I can help you with, we will be around for the rest of this time and obviously the rest of the conference. Yeah?
I have a question regarding the moment when you print the labels and where you print the labels. As it seems for now, you can only have a print work type, and it will always print at that moment. But as many workers are working in the same zone in the warehouse, or shipping labels are always printed at bay door, they get switched in between packages. So is there a way I can force the user to actively say print now?
That's a good question. We should try to repeat whether we can make a work step that kind of needs to be triggered from the mobile device. No.
A confirmation step?
Yeah.
It would be a customization.
So, and though, yeah, I mean, you could make a additional step where you basically after the last pick say, okay, which then automatically would go to the next line, which would do the print. That's right?
Yeah.
Right. And you can, I don't know if you're familiar with these custom steps. I mean, you can, that's really just like the print. If we go take a look at the work template, I mean, one way to deal with this, the work template. Would be to make one new here and say custom step, and make it like this. Oh, sorry, this one needs to go up. Move up, well. So that could be one way. And then you could add, even if you want to you can key in actual additional information and save those data, which will not be the case. So this will basically just be an OK, and you can write a small comment, actually say OK to print, and that will then take kind of a holding position like that. Yeah. Then you don't need to code anything at least, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was already coding.
Another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, is it possible with that custom step to register, for example, our printers have barcodes, and key into the printer, like this is the printer I want to use to print my labels, and give that to the document routing, and print the label on that printer. Is that possible to do?
Yeah, you'd end up using the document routing. Like you'd have to have something in the query that then could read what you're talking about, read this sort of custom field. There's barcode that needs to be scanned at that point. It would need to read that and then use the query to figure out sort of which printer to look at. So, yes?
It would be a modification in that document routing.
Yep. Okay. Anything else? Yep.
So question was about the full button, which will split kind of the work and really have new headers, kind of say we have something remaining that needs to be processed. And the thing that we already have picked will kind of need to be put as the next step. So the print will kick off at that process as soon as the final pick is kind of completed on the work. Then we'll basically jump to the next work line, which will then be the print. In this case, it will ask print OK, and then after you press OK, it will print. Yeah, so that when that has been printed, it will ask you to put for this work someone else or the same user. That's actually something you can define where you want to keep the same user for the remaining as part of the menu item setting, or someone else just pick up the remaining on kind of a new work. Okay, and that one will be a copy of using the same work template of the need to pick and print and put. Okay.
Is there a question back there that we missed? Well, so the text file that was generated here was just because of the setup that Per did with the driver.
You normally wouldn't have that.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
no, not that was just a sort of Windows driver, just so we could show in this demo the text file getting generated.
So that's kind of important to understand that the only thing about using kind of make a new pawn and write down to a text file, etc. Right? You will not use that. You will direct this to the device itself, which will take care of this printing.
I mean, but that being said, we have seen partners and customers intentionally print kind of like this, print to like network shares, print actual files, and then have something else pick those up and actually print them. You know, just to, yeah. Yeah, that would be very driver specific. It'd be outside of AX. So.
Okay, but if no more questions, then thank you very much for attending the session. Please do remember to fill out the evaluation. That's really helpful for us to know next time we're here. Hopefully we can do an even better job, making you even happier. So thank you very much.
Thank you.